How's it going, everyone? I'm VenomousStare. Today I have something exceptional. Feeling a little bit under the weather, but when I saw this replay I had to get it out to you. It's Byun versus Maru. And if you don't know who these two guys are, you're really in for a treat. So, just to introduce things real quick, we have Byun in the top left. He's going to go gas first. This is Habitation Station. The key feature of this map is this gold base in the middle. And in the top right we have Maru, and they're doing exactly the same builds. I've seen TVTs featuring Byun where it was actually against TY, the games I'm referring to. You can find them on my channel. But in these games, Byun and TY would do literally the same build order for like the first 6.5 minutes of the game, down to every little detail, like down to when they made the reactor. If you look at the production tab, it was just like this for like 6.5 minutes. So back to Byun and Maru, the current game. As we see, obviously both players are probably going to go Reaper. But Byun, he is an independent contractor. He was teamless for a long time. He's been around the scene forever. He was playing in some of the first GSLs whenever the Terrans were really micro-based and aggressive. We do see a Reaper coming out for Maru, but a Marine coming out for Byun and a faster factory. But back in the early days of GSL, a lot of the players favored heavy aggression and micro-based styles. A lot of one-base all-ins, a lot of like Banshee play. Byun was right up this alley. He was this kind of player. And he's kind of developed into someone who has an exceptional macro game, but has that crisp, aggressive micro that we see players who played like that have. Now Maru was referred to as the Prince by many people. He was kind of thumbed to be MKP's successor. If you don't know who MKP is, he was this guy who was around since the early days of Wings of Liberty, Marine King Prime. And he actually made it to the finals of the second GSL and lost to Nesty in 7 games. Basically, he just did 2 racks bunker rush every single game. We see Maru's going to run up with this Reaper here, but Byun's Hellion is going to finish, and Maru's actually going to escape, possibly. I think Byun's going to pursuit angle, and yeah, Byun gets him. So, nice micro by Byun, having his Hellion pop out and then attack and move it up as soon as he could. Byun's going to go for Cloaked Banshees here, and notice how early he gets this out. He's going to have Cloak researching at around 250, so good job. Notice how crisp his building add-on and his swapping is. This means that everything Byun does is timed out to like the second. He's not screwing around. And you know, like whenever I play Terran, for instance, I will probably always waste like 10 seconds inefficiently making add-ons at several points in the game, but if we look at people like Byun, he never does that. Everything is timed out perfectly. Maru has lifted off. He's made a Viking. If you don't know why he's making a Viking, Viking is like the 5-tool defense of TVT. It's good against a lot of different things. It counters the medevac, it counters the Banshee, and it can help you defend drops, because we see drop play and Terran versus Terran, especially at lower levels, can be really dangerous. Because if you go late, if you get into the mid and late game and don't have a reasonable amount of turrets, especially on a map like Habitation Station where the air rush distance is so short, you can get picked apart by drops, and if you're not good at microing, you can really easily lose. I think Terran versus Terran is the hardest mirror matchup to play, to be honest, because the build orders are a bit finicky. As we see, Byun kills 4 SCVs there, but it's very nuance based. I think Protoss versus Protoss is the easiest and most fun mirror matchup to play. Maru has started his orbital. Byun's is almost finished. His command center, that is. Byun's starting to build tanks. He's also gone for a Raven here, and he's producing double Marine out of a reactor. This is something I would stress to new players. If you are playing TVT, you should always have 1 reactored barracks, because the ability to pump out double Marine is really valuable and prevents you from losing to a lot of early bullshit. That's one thing that I learned. Oftentimes when I played Terran, I would do the 1 barracks and then try to make a tech lab a lot of the times. And the reactor is actually pretty damn safe. and useful. But Byun's going to swap here so he can get double medevacs, I presume. Actually, he's going to get double Viking. That's interesting. Maru's thinking about flying over. He has 3 Vikings and a Raven. And if we look at the units tab, look how much similarity there is. A reasonable amount. Maru has a siege tank here outside of his natural. And one of the most exciting things about both Byun and Maru is they are one of the extremely rare type. They're an extremely rare type of player where they can just brute force their opponent with pure micro. And I know you're saying, well, a lot of people have good micro. You don't understand. These guys will go into certain engagements, and things that you think should not be possible, they will make happen. Engagements will occur where something you think that is impossible, or you think one side that's heavily favored will come out on top, and then Byun or Maru will just brute force their way through with micro. It's really exciting to watch. So we see a couple of auto turrets are going to come down, but Byun's going to lose his Raven. He's going to step forward and try to take care of one of Maru's Vikings, but he doesn't quite get it. The price of building those reactored Marines is you don't get to start stim, of course, but Byun has got 8 kills on this Banshee, wow. Total. So he's up to 10 workers killed now, and Maru's down to quite a bit of supply. Byun has taken his 3rd. Scan in the main. I'm so spoiled with this replay feature of being able to zoom out. I always feel like I should be able to zoom out even more. 2 barracks are coming, and Byun has his classic early season GSL Viking flower going on. And this is good because if he flies in range, if Maru flies in range, the Vikings will basically all shoot at once and devastate it. Maru's going to try to siege up on this high ground. He has a mine here, great positioning. He also has a fair amount of Vikings. Both players are researching stim. They're in the 40s as far as workers go. But Byun definitely has the Marine advantage. Scan coming out here. Byun's Widow Mine, beautifully placed because of how high traffic this area is. More Vikings coming out for Byun. Remember, Vikings can land, so if Maru wants to be cute, or if Byun's way out of position, Maru can land something and pick off an add-on. Because remember, Vikings do bonus damage to armored when they land, and they're going to have a little Viking fight here. And if we go to units, well, they're still about even. And they're having a little micro battle here. Maru has, of course, the weak one in the back, so it doesn't die. Notice Byun left his tanks to cover both the natural and his 3rd. Great positioning there. Lots of stuff in the production tab. Both players are upgrading. Combat shields is on the way for Maru. He's producing tanks. He's building double reactor on his barracks, and he's adding on more barracks. New players, of course, as we see a Widow Mine get a kill. New players, of course, you do want to continue to add on production as the game goes and as you expand, because you don't want to get in a situation where you have to queue up a bunch of units onto a few barracks. You want to be able to get your units out as quick as possible. And of course, that's obvious to people like Maru and Byun, but not everyone who watches these videos are as good as Maru and Byun. Byun, of course, is adding his barracks. He's also gone for the double reactor. And he's adding a couple more, so not very many Marauders being used. That's interesting. Now the siege tank does do bonus damage to armored now. Like, more bonus damage is better versus armored units. I'm aware that it did bonus damage versus armored in the past, but I wonder if that's why they're not making very many Marauders. Marines are more mobile and they are more versatile, of course. They can shoot up. But Marauders are very good when you use them with drops because they do bonus damage to armored. They just shred through buildings. A 4 Marauder drop is very good at picking off add-ons. It's also very good at picking off pylons and killing queens, by the way, for the other matchups. Maru might do a little push here. Both players are kind of awkwardly sieged at the base of the ramp. They didn't want to commit and then have the other player beat them to siege. Byun's combat shield is about to finish. That's very valuable, because these siege tanks pack a punch, guys. Byun's going to siege up here, and so is Maru. But Byun has a center tower up, or Maru, yes, sorry. Byun has a center tower up here in his main. Ooh, drop here for Maru, but it gets deflected by Vikings, and Maru has to move back. He's really relying on that drop. And Byun, of course, is going to reposition. I like to see this. Good moves from both players, being very active with their armies. Notice how both of them are keeping their money very low, too, while this is going on. Sieging up here are both Terran players. Byun has a ton of tanks dying, and Maru has a lot of tanks on this high ground, but both players are down to 5. So still very close, very back and forth, but Byun has maintained a bit of a supply lead. He's building another sensor tower. This is great, building sensor towers, because this prevents you from being caught off guard. One of the easiest ways to lose TVT is getting caught off guard with the drop and having your army out of position, or having your opponent siege in a really good spot. Maru does have a nice spotting depot down there. He's moving his army northbound towards the center of the map and westward towards the base of Byun, and Byun sees this, but the tanks are going to get sieged. They are not really in range of the ramp though, and Byun is going to move his tanks as well. So both players are jockeying for position here. This is nice to see. And this is what it looks like when two players who have a lot of APM and are very good at microing play against each other. Sure, there's not a lot of damage occurring, but that's because they're constantly just checking each other's moves. This is like in a game of chess whenever... Okay, hold that thought. We have both players attacking here with Stim as Byun moved up, down into that ramp area, but lost some Marines. He's now only a little bit ahead in supply. Maru has more Marines, the Marine Prince, and some siege tanks are going to exchange fire here. Maru, that one is very, very low. But what I was saying is it's like in chess when both players continuously make moves against one another. And like they don't lose a lot of pieces, they're just kind of playing for position, but I digress. As Byun, his tanks get a couple of good shots off, and Maru does that thing where he runs around with Stim Marines and just kind of waits for his tanks to position because he doesn't want to commit, but all in all he just loses some Marines. He's ferried these units over with speed medevacs, good move. He's taken a 4th as well, so has Byun. And notice that Byun has added a 2nd factory so he can produce tanks 2 at a time. Ooh, that's powerful, powerful from Maru, as we see. That was all it took, was having siege tanks positioned nicely. Byun tried to stem down and got obliterated. But Byun has +3 on the way. And there are a lot of structures as well. Byun does have a nice SCV lead. If we look at army, they are pretty similar. Byun does actually have way more tanks now that I think about it, because he has 2 factory production. But Maru also has 2 factory production. It was just a bit later. So Maru has 7 tanks, Byun has 10. That is very important. Maru's stimming up here, doing lots of damage to Byun's tanks. As you see, now they're even in tanks, so good move by Maru there, but he's down to 20 Marines, and Byun is going to drop forward onto the army of Maru. Maru is going to have to, messes up the hot pickup micro a little bit there. Right? Yeah. If we go to units lost, they're actually pretty close. Byun has lost more, but he's ahead in supply. Maru is rallying his army forward. He has a nice mix of medevac and Marine, but Byun has a ton of units. He's going to siege a couple tanks forward, try to chase Maru down. Maru sieges a couple tanks up and starts a liberation zone. Maru is being attacked and deflated a bit, but he's going to hold off this initial push, but Byun is going to siege up more tanks. Maru stims his army, thinks about what he wants to do, moves his liberator forward, and Byun lures the Marines into his tank fire. Very back and forth game, as this 4th base is not there anymore, but Byun's is, and it is a planetary, so Byun is pretty far ahead at this point. If we go to income, Byun has more workers, more bases, doesn't kill any of those tanks with that drop. He's falling behind in supply. Byun is sieging more tanks forward. Both players have +1 on their tanks. Byun is going to move one of his tanks back. It would be nice to see one SCV kind of move forward repairing these tanks, because a lot of them are very low. It's more inexpensive to repair them than it is remake them. 3-3 is well on its way for Byun. Those upgrades are a bit staggered. Notice one of the ways that Byun is ahead is in upgrades. Maru hasn't even started his 3-3. So once Byun especially has this +3 attack, it's going to be difficult to deal with for Maru. Byun is ahead about 30 supply now. As we see, Maru is down to making pretty much pure marine and a handful of starport units. He can't afford those double tanks anymore. Droopy little drop here for Byun. Look how oversaturated this third base is. And Byun is just going to go to town. He stems forward, does some damage. A little bit of a hotkey error because whenever he moved his main army forward, he messed up his drop. Dare I say he used the control army hotkey? Byun. But Maru is going to jockey his army forward. His income is still severely lower than Byun's. 2 tanks are being produced though for Maru. One of the things that Maru is famous for is his scrappy play and coming back into games a few units with his micro. So Byun has been ahead for a while, but don't count Maru out. Tanks have been sieged on the high ground here for Byun. Tanks are sieged as well for Maru. They're going to exchange some shots, but Maru has this wonderful liberator, kind of always forcing Byun's hand. Maru has this high ground advantage if he wants to push it, but Maru unsieges and Byun takes that opportunity to stem forward and siege his own tanks. Viking is finally going to kill this hero liberator. Actually, I think it's a different one at this point, but the one liberator. Maru unsieges his tanks. He's going to re-siege them at the bottom of the ramp as Byun snakes his forward. So he takes a fight at the top of the ramp. This is a very action-packed and bad game to cast while I'm so sick. But great game to watch as we see Byun volleys a Viking shot onto Medivacs, and he's poking and prodding at Byun, trying to force his hand. This is something interesting, is despite the fact that Maru has always been behind in supply, he's always using a handful of air units to poke and prod Byun. I like to see this. Notice how he's always moving them back and forth. Of course, he had that Liberator earlier, always trying to pick off stray tanks. But Byun has the macro on his side, the power of income, never to be underestimated, and the power of upgrades as well. The critical one, of course, being that 3-3 to 2-2 discrepancy. Main base has been lifted here, down to the 4th. So if we go to income, they're about even now, but Byun can lift his main to the gold, and since he has those sensor towers, I would say that he has a better chance of holding them than Maru with his gold. But some action is going to come down here. Both parties sieged at the top and bottom of this little plateau. It's interesting that Habitation Station TVT has so much action over here, when in other matchups we usually see the action occurring near the middle of the base, or the middle of the map, excuse me, and by the gold bases. Kind of in this area a lot of times, and down by this third in the natural ramp. Both players are going to siege once again, jockeying for position. Byun is ahead a lot in supply. Maru is moving to take the gold base as well, as we see this base, Gonzo. I guess I missed that, Kappa. Maru is continuing to siege, but Byun might move down the ramp. 3 tanks are sieged for Maru. Byun is almost maxed, by the way. Tanks once again being sieged on this low ground. Byun responding by, of course, sieging his tanks. Byun has a ton of Marines. Maru does have more medevacs. Stim coming forward here by Byun. Maru gets a couple tank shots off. Byun thinks about it, decides no, but his tanks do get nice shots. They're hidden behind this little tree. He has a few more as well. Ooh, sandwich here. Byun stemming 2 individual groups of Marines forward. Great move by Byun to flank on Maru, and that might be the game as Maru's behind 100 supply. A Venn diagram here, 2 liberators. Byun might just brute force here. Lots of stem Marines. They are low, but not enough tanks for it to matter. And Maru GG. So if you enjoyed that, subscribe for more. It was very congested, and that was an insane amount of action. So the rest of this series will be up, and I will be uploading more of the Venomous Classics, the old classic games too. So subscribe for more.